disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hey, one and all, welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So, interesting news was supposed to happen this week involving Ukraine. As told by Truth in Media, as they suggested this week, Ukraine was supposed to have a new president. There was supposed to be an election, apparently. But, quite literally, Zelensky's 5-year term in office has expired. But because Ukraine is in war and has instituted martial law, no election was ever held. No plans exist of any more elections in Ukraine now or in the future. So why is the U.S. media still lying and lionizing? That's even a word? Why is the U.S. media still lionizing Ukraine as the stronghold democracy? And you hear it all the time, still to this day, like, oh, if we, if Russia wins, then that goes democracy. We got to protect democracy in Ukraine. Well, we didn't protect it in 2014, that's for sure. 2014, we overthrew the democratically elected government in Ukraine to install a puppeteer government, which is why we're in this mess to begin with. But now it has become clear and official that there won't be an election anytime soon in Ukraine, just as they promised, because, hey, we're still in constant war. Hey, we're instituting martial law because we're in a war zone right now. We can't have democracy. We can't allow people to choose, because if people chose, maybe they didn't want to be in a war. And here to explain it is Ben Swan, investigative journalist, part of Truth in Media. Take a look at this.
This week marks a very important moment for the country of Ukraine. In the midst of their ongoing war with Russia, this week, Ukraine is supposed to have a new president. Quite literally, Vladimir Zelensky's 5-year term as president has expired. But because Ukraine is at war and has instituted martial law, no election was held. Zelensky remains in power, and most importantly, there is no plan for holding elections again at any point in the near future. I'm investigative journalist Ben Swan, and over the past few weeks, we have been exposing the issues surrounding Ukraine's President Zelensky. More importantly, whether Ukraine is truly the bastion of freedom that we're being told. If it is, why have the elections in that country been halted at a moment when polls show that if the election were held today, Zelensky would not be re-elected? This is a special edition of Zelensky Unmasked.
I think that kind of answered the question right there. If the elections were held today, obviously their puppeteer government, the Azov Battalion-controlled government that's allowing this war to continue on to purge Ukrainians to go after Russia, would be over. And since the United States, NATO, and a bunch of other allies that want to advance warfare into Russia like another Cold War situation, they don't want to lose their puppets. They don't want to lose their comedian. It kind of explains itself right there. This is an introduction.
Я вважаю, що зараз вибори не на часі.
Well, that was Vladimir Zelensky in November of last year. The 2024 elections were supposed to take place 2 months ago in March. But see, that date came and went as Zelensky's approval rating has continued to decline and decline and decline. In fact, the share of Ukrainians who say they absolutely approve of Zelensky fell from 74% in the aftermath of Russia's invasion to just 22% at around the time when the election was supposed to be held. And to be fair, absolute approval, that's a tough one. And Zelensky's overall approval rating is still high, around 63%. But again, it's fallen considerably from his overall rating of around 90% at the start of the war. Now, there is a more interesting poll, though. It shows that Zelensky would have likely lost the March presidential election in Ukraine had it been held 2 months ago when it was supposed to. So who would have won? Well, that would be General Valery Zaluzhny, the former commander-in-chief of the Ukraine Armed Forces, and the man Zelensky fired earlier this year. Zelensky fired him because Zaluzhny gave an interview to The Economist in which he said the war between Ukraine and Russia had reached a stalemate and Ukraine can't advance. So, Let's ask this question. Why was there no election? Well, in fairness, Ukraine does have a law that states that during a time of martial law, no parliamentary or local elections can be held. The law does not cover presidential elections, but some in Ukraine and in the West, they claim that the presidential office should be included. On the other hand, others, including current and former government officials, claim that the Constitution of the country overrides the law regarding martial law. But at least the U.S. Secretary of State has made a couple things pretty clear. There will not be an election, and there won't be a change in Ukraine's leadership, not just during war, but even.
Of course not, because then Antony Blinken can go over there and rocket in a free world. The most ironic thing to do in Kiev, in Ukraine, is to go over there and sing a Neil Young song, Rocking the Free World, when you're not living in a free world. They oppose their political opponents. They silence out the media. They censored out individuals in Ukraine. It's basically a formation of a Western country. Ukraine is really like a 51st state of America. Except they actually have better control of martial law. They have better control of cracking down on people that want democracy. My God, this is crazy. And there's still people that want to believe the myth that Ukraine is this bastion of great democracy. It's great liberalism. Oh my God, that's so unique. You can have transgenderness on the streets of Ukraine. You want to get rid of that? But we got to give up your elections. You're not allowed to vote. You're not allowed to have a voice. Because if you had a voice, then NATO would be, out of there, and they lose their puppet.
If a ceasefire is reached,
we're working with the government and civil society groups to shore up Ukraine's election infrastructure. That way, as soon as Ukrainians agree the conditions allow, all Ukrainians, including those displaced by Russia's aggression, can exercise their right to vote.
what many analysts seem to agree on is that even if elections cannot be held now, there needs to be less consolidation of power by the Zelensky regime. And here's what I mean by that. There is some historical precedent for this. For instance, during World War II, Winston Churchill, he stayed in office beyond his term. But historically, it's important to know that in 1940, the UK created a wartime coalition government in their parliament. See, if you're going to extend power, you must share power. Israel just did the same thing after the Hamas attack in October, creating a national unity government in wartime. What makes Ukraine unique, not only is Zelensky's expired presidential term now indefinite, but there is no coalition government in Ukraine, as Zelensky's Servant of the People Party almost completely controls the parliament. It's not a coalition government, it's a complete consolidation of power. And that seems to be for good reason. In our next episode, we're going to explain to you where the more than $100 billion sent to Ukraine appears to be going, and who's getting very, very rich.
I can name a few examples of who's getting rich. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northern Grunrup, politicians that are bankrolling on investments into rebuilding Ukraine, BlackRock. I mean, why else would Zelensky have business meetings in Boca Raton, Florida? We showed it on this channel here. The foreign leader in wartime is doing Zoom calls to business executives in Boca Raton, Florida. I thought this was a, disastrous moment. We can't focus on democracy. We can't focus on civil liberties. We can't focus on civilians because we're in a devastating time right now. But give me 2 seconds. I'll get on the phone and talk to the executives of Disney, so they can advertise the idea of Ukraine solidarity going against the evilness of Russia. Oh my God. It just reminded me of when they posed for GQ. GQ was allowed to do magazine shoots in a war zone. Give me a break. Give me a break. Oh, this is not the time to have elections. BS. I mean, it literally, you know, at least Ukraine's lucky to have the idea that they're in a war zone right now. They at least had fortunate to do that. I'm sure our ministers, our leaders here in Western countries will love to do the same thing, but they can't just come out and say, well, we're in a war zone right now, because we're not actually in a war zone. They can't cancel democracy. They can't cancel elections and stuff, even though they're trying. They're trying so hard to do so, imposing all these new restrictions and laws and gang attacking political opponents and so on. So they can't just be open and say, I don't want to have democracy. I want to rule over the world to the rest of the day I die. They can't do that. So at least in defense, Ukraine has the perfect opportunity to cancel its elections. And it is literally amazing because as you see the back and forth of the media, and we showed examples of this before, but I just want to highlight because someone brought up this little graphic here just to show how they try to propagandize this random country that we knew from the start was a corrupted Eastern European nation dealing with neo-Nazis. We knew that from the start because look at before the crisis. The Guardian, welcome to Ukraine, the most corrupt nation in Europe. From Reuters, Ukraine's neo-Nazi problem. These are all headlines before the Russia invasion, before Russia invaded the territory. When they were trying to defend the Donbass region, which are Ukrainians that wanted to side with the Russian Federation. Here's Vox. A Ukrainian comedian turned president is embroiled in Trump's impeachment mess. That's from Vox. New Europe. I don't know what that is. Ukrainian president's rule becomes increasingly corrupt. Authoritarian. Wow. Talk about predicting the future. Talk about like having a crystal ball and predicting the future. Hey, whoever thought a comedian performing on talent shows was going to be so daring and so awful? And by the way, that impeachment, as they explained in Vox, you know what that impeachment was that it got tied with Zelensky and Ukraine? Trump got impeached because as president, he was trying to halt and slow down the process of sending military-grade weaponry to Ukraine. That is why Donald Trump got impeached, folks. He slowed down the process of advancing warfare in Ukraine. They tried to impeach the president for not being a better war criminal. That's literally what they tried to capture Donald Trump on. You're not a good enough war criminal, so we're going to impeach you. Until he started to fire rockets at Syria. Then all of a sudden, Brian Williams on MSNBC. Oh my God, he was so presidential. Oh, I could sing like love songs right now. I could sing Leonard Cohen. Oh, so beautiful. Donald Trump, the war criminal. Yay! Love it. And it's deeply disturbing, folks. And so that was before, and then after when they try to paranoia and fearmonger and turn this in a whole different light. Now look at the headlines from The Guardian. The fight for Ukraine is a fight for liberal ideals. For liberal ideals. I don't know what, I guess the modern liberal, because they're for censorship, they're for totalitarianism, they're for authoritarianism, mandates, lockdowns. The fight for liberal ideals. From Reuters, for foreign fighters, Ukraine offers purpose. I can't even say that. Commandery, and a cause. First, Ukraine was a rebel without a cause. Now they found it. CNN, Ukrainians are giving 2 lessons in democracy that Americans have forgotten. Oh my God. Of course CNN would write that. Of course that would be a headline on goddamn CNN. That Ukrainians are giving Americans a lesson in democracy. You know, like when you have another country install a leader and then tell those people to suck it up and deal with it. So we can advance warfare over there, so we can fight Russia over there and not fight them over here because we're pussy cowards. The lesson in democracy. My God. The Washington Post, Zelensky, the TV president turned war hero. Holy crap. Somewhere right now, Napoleon and George Washington are rolling their graves. You know what the difference between them and Zelensky is? George Washington, during the Revolutionary days, actually fought with the Americans. He was a fighter. He was a general. He actually fought with the people. You ever looked at today's, politicians? They don't fight with people. They don't get in their bootstraps. They don't fight their problems. They go on the media and scare you to believe that other people have to fight those people because we got to fight that boogeyman because, oh my God, it's so crazy and they're going to come after you. And then they get you so prepped up on fear, prepped up on paranoia, so you go and massacre each other. Well, they go cash in the bank. That's the basis of a war criminal, a modern day take of a so-called hero in the neoliberal global hemisphere. The TV president turned war hero. Jesus Christ. And then I had to pick this up because it was a funny ass meme. Says, "Good morning, sir. Have you accepted President Zelensky as your Lord and Savior?" Doesn't even have to be Zelensky. You can just insert any kind of war criminal, any kind of politician. Can even work for Bill Gates during COVID. Have you accepted Bill Gates as your professional doctor? Have you accepted Rachel Maddow as your saint, your soldier for news? And the scariest part of that, as much as I'm laughing at how hysterical that meme is, the scary part of that is people actually think that they're powerful enough to react in a way that they're like a religious figure. That is scary. That's kind of scary. To put someone on that high pedestal and idolize them as some sort of savant or a saint or just an amazement when literally they are people serving an evil oligarchy and you're being blindsided, manipulated, and brainwashed to suck into this. It's absolutely horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. When people think of like Rachel Maddow as the great savior of news, or Zelensky as a hero, or Benjamin Netanyahu, a defender of the Jewish faith, like it is just insane. Insane that people would go down that path knowing that going down that path is going to screw them 9 ways to Sunday. The same people that are chanting Joe Biden another 4 years. When they don't even realize the current 4 years are already screwing them so much. I don't think people can take another year of someone like Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau or any of these nefarious ghouls in parliament and the presidency and in leadership roles. Clearly Ukraine feels the same way. You just saw there, if they had the election, if they actually had the election, their puppet would be gone. Then this would be over. Then they have nothing to blackmail, manipulate, and control Ukraine to advance warfare on Russia. They have nothing. And because they're continuing to do this, even though they're failing at every single point in turn. Russia is not weakened. The Russian economy is stronger than ever. And the only one that's getting permanently damaged from this is us. We are getting screwed by our own creation to advance warfare on another foreign territory. It only hurts us. And of course, it hurts the Ukrainians that suffer and die and sacrifice their livelihoods, thinking that they're defending something when really all they're defending is U.S. hegemony. All they're defending is political power. All they're defending is neocon globalist tyranny and conglomerates like NATO to expand and dominate and control other nations. That's all this is about, folks. That's all this is about. And the fact that we are causing our own destruction, we are illegally violating international laws and treaties that we cultivated to think that it's going to stop Russia. We violated so we can attack Russia. And Russia is retaliating because they said enough is enough. They're crossing the line. They're going into it and defending the people of the Donbass region, which had a civil war, which nobody ever discusses for obvious reasons. They don't want people to know why this war is happening. They still think it happened on a cold February day in 2022. It didn't. It's been going on for years. It's built up to the point that Russia said enough is enough and stormed right in. And now people are dealing with absolute consequence. You know, the average Ukrainian fighter right now is up. It's almost at their 50s right now. The average age for a Ukrainian fighter is in their 50s now because they slaughtered everybody else in this process. But you get people like Lindsey Graham on TV or Nancy Pelosi or any other creans on any media platform right now. They're going to be preaching this. They're going to try to fool you with this. They literally are like the Jehovah's Witness of neoliberal, disastrous politics and power. And this meme is just so perfect. Like I said, you don't even have to use Zelensky as an example. You can say Netanyahu. Do you accept him as your ultimate savior? Even though he is a catastrophic war criminal. He is a genocidal freak. He is an absolute immoral, disastrous monster that is cultivating power, silencing his own people, attacking his own people, and is actually more of an anti-Semite than anyone in planet Earth. He's up there with Hitler, folks. And the only difference between him and Hitler at least knew when his career was over. Netanyahu still contains power because they're never going to let him go. They're never going to let Zelensky go. They're never going to let Joe Biden go. If there's an opportunity to seize control, they will do it. And it's disastrous for everybody else. That's why it's important to be critical, to be analytical, and to call this out before it takes over and silence you out completely. Because if you don't speak up for somebody else, if you don't speak up for, the saying goes, they attacked the disabled, and I said nothing. They attacked, brown people. I said nothing. They attacked black people. I said nothing. They attacked women. I didn't say anything. Now they attack me, and there's no one else left. So we got to call this for what it is, and thank God for people like Ben Swan, investigative journalists who've been covering this for a long while. I respect his work. I give him credit for what he's done, and calling out for what it is. Ukraine is not a bastion of democracy. It is a tyrannical, puppeteer, neoliberal, established trope to use as cannon fodder to fight against Russia, which Russia is going against the global machine. And this is not me taking sides. This is just facts. I'm not putting Russia on a different pedestal than my own country or anybody else. I'm just saying that Russia is defending the people of the Donbass region, defending people away from the NATO credences, from the Azov Battalion, and from tyrannical leaders like Zelensky that is using his own people for sacrifice and abusing his own power. This is brought to you by Ground News, the versatile news app and website that gathers all the world's media on one place and allows users to compare coverage. Ground News gives you the access of thousands of sources worldwide, allows you to see the media blind spots, and even gives analysis on the bias and factuality of those stories. Weave your way through the mainstream narratives, the corporate lies, and have total access to find complete information that you deserve. Click on the link below and get 15% off a subscription. Be critical, be informed, be ground.